What's up, guys? We are back. Fitness Profit Multiplier, Anthony and Jimmy. Today, we're going to do something a little different, a little bit off the cuff here. We're going to be talking about our origin stories, which I think you guys can relate to a lot. We are gym owners just like you guys, and we got into this with you guys to help you guys get to the position that we are at now. But in order to understand where we are at now, you gotta kind of have the backstory and how we got to where we got to. So, Jimmy, today we're going to be talking about the past.
Yep.
Diving deep into the past.
And one of the things about it is you guys may think that a lot of people look at the result or where somebody is and don't think about what it took to get there. And they just think, oh, they're so successful. They're so they're killing the game and all this kind of thing. And a lot of people forget to think about what it took to get there and where somebody could have started and where somebody was when they started the journey and what kind of things they had to go through to get to where they are now. And it's one of these things that's important to talk about, because if all you look at is somebody's chapter 20 and you're on chapter 1, that comparison is really the thief of joy and the thief of your ability to continue to progress moving forward, because you just think, oh, they have it all. They didn't work for it, or they whatever. There's some secret as to why they are the way they are. But that's not the case. I mean, what's the statistic, Anthony? It's like 89% or something. I don't know if that's accurate, of millionaires are self-made, something like that, right?
Yeah, something like that. And I think only a certain percentage of them actually inherited their wealth.
Right. So it's one of those things where for you guys to see where we came from, not only from our, youth, our younger past, but our business come up also is important. So talking about the come up business wise, talking about where we came from our youth, from where we started out at, is important to know, so that you can know that if you're in a similar position that we started in, that you are not alone and you can make it too. So
one of the things that actually scares me, and I'll share this with you guys on this podcast today, is that, and I hate to say I've made it. I hate to say that, but the one thing that I worry about is my kids, because my kids have things that I didn't have. And that's the goal of a parent, right? Your goal is to give them all the things that you didn't have as a kid, and you want to give it to your kids. But the problem is I didn't have things growing up, so it pushed me to get to a different level. But my kids are at a level that I never was at their age with the things that they have. So that's one of the things that actually scares me about being successful, in air quotes, if you're listening to this on the podcast. When you are successful, it's very hard to not give your kids everything, because I know for me, if I didn't struggle the way I did as a kid, I wouldn't have gotten to where I am today. So
right.
That's one of my biggest fears, actually.
And I don't have any kids yet, but that's kind of the thing that you think about, right? Because Anthony and I both grew up not that well off, right?
Well, let's start with your story, man, since we're off here. So let's hear your story, your origin stories, and let's hear how you ended up picking green as your color for your gym.
So, yeah, let's talk. We'll start from the beginning, right? But briefly, we'll talk about the history and the upbringing and where I started, and then kind of go from there. So, I grew up in a pretty wealthy town, but it was during a time in which my parents had some financial hardship, right? And so we ended up moving into a town that grew a bunch after we moved there, so we could still afford to kind of live in that town. But my parents went through a divorce when I was probably about 12 or 14 years old, something like that, and finances were a big problem for us. We were on free lunch programs at the school. We were, waiving all of our athletic fees and things like that, and just didn't have any money to really do anything, right? And that's how we grew up. We still were able to keep this home in a rich area, but it was a struggle. I mean, my mom, when we were growing up, made something like 20 grand a year, right? And before taxes. And my dad was kind of out of the picture at the time. So it was one of these things where it was hard coming up for us. And that was what kind of motivated me to say, I don't ever want an employer, because my dad got laid off is what happened. And it was like 3 years of him not finding work and that kind of thing, and just burned through our savings, and we weren't able to kind of make it as a family. And for me, that stoked a fire in me to say, one, I don't ever want to be poor. And two, I don't ever want somebody else to be in control of my employment, right? I wanted to be in full control of my employment so that I know that the effort and the work that I put in determines my income, right? And that started me on this path of learning as much as I could about strength conditioning and fitness, because that was the passion that I had found at a young age. Started personal training when I was 18 at a Gold's Gym. That was my first job.
Well, man, I gotta cut you off because let me tell my story now too,
Yeah.
because it's gonna echo the almost similar thing. So, my parents, we grew up. We didn't have a lot of money. My dad was actually an entrepreneur. He had a video business. So he was a photographer. So I would work with him when I was younger on the weekends, and that was my first job. And I'd work with him. I'd be with him the whole day, and I'd get like $20. So anyway, my dad was an entrepreneur, had this business, and was doing really well at one point. We never really had our own house. We lived with my grandparents one time, and then my grandparents bought like a building, so we lived in one of the apartments in the building. We never really had a house. And my mom wasn't working at the time. She was taking care of me and my sisters. And I was 8, and my dad decided he wanted to live his life and go be with other women. So he left my mom, and my mom had to go out and get a job. And very similar to yours, man, she only made like less than $20,000 a year. She was like a receptionist. So I was 8. I was a little younger than you, but same thing. I mean, I remember one time my mom was like looking out the window because she was just so depressed and just like staring out the window like this and just looking at the cars going by. And we had no money. Like, it was really bad because my dad just up and left, didn't give us anything. And she's like, Anthony, there's money outside. Go get it. So I ran outside, and it was like $20, and it was enough for us to go get like, well, then $20 was a little bit more. So we were able to get like, milk, eggs, and all these other things. But it was really hard growing up, man. And I'll never forget that. And like you, same thing. Free lunch at school, all that stuff, which I don't know. It's just part of it. But, as a kid, I don't think you realize how bad the situation is until you like talk about it and look back on it. Now you're like, wow, how did my mom do it? 3 kids making less than 20 grand a year as a receptionist. It's not an easy thing at all. And my dad wasn't around at all. So it was one of those things where it was just, it was very hard growing up. And for me, I found fitness because I was very skinny. I didn't have a lot of money to eat, I guess. So I was very, very skinny growing up. So when I got into high school, and again, at this point, we had moved around a little bit. We moved from Brooklyn to Queens, where my mom's family was. So we're living in with her parents. So, moving to Queens, go to this high school. I'm the only I went to high school. I knew no one. So we left in the middle of the year. In what grade you go into high school? Sixth grade?
High school,
yeah, ninth, whatever. No, it's not
like
ninth. Is it ninth?
Ninth grade, freshman year, ninth grade, 14 years old or so, something like that.
Yeah. So the year before, went to a whole new school. I knew nobody for not even half a year. It was 2 months out of the year. Had no friends. I actually went through a little period of time where I was super depressed as a kid. I knew no one. I went from knowing everyone in the school to knowing no one, and having a whole bunch of friends to having no one. Went to this high school, and I remember walking into the weight room and seeing all the kids that were so much bigger, and I'm like, wow, I want that. And that was it for me. I picked up I got an Arnold Schwarzenegger magazine, a Muscle and Fitness happened to be, and that was the end of it. And just like you, 18, I became certified. Became a trainer. On my 18th birthday, I walked to the Gold's Gym that was down the block, and I applied for a job. I got the job right then and there on the spot, and here we are today. But very similar story, man. It's actually pretty funny.
Yeah, and to parrot that, my motivation for the gym at a young age was my dad actually got me into lifting weights, right? And he had this rule where it's like I couldn't play football unless I could bench my own body weight or something at like 12 years old. And I was like, what 12-year-old can bench their own body weight? I don't know, but I was able to do it. And and I was kind of one of these pudgier kids, right? When I was growing up, I had a little extra body fat. My family, everybody, most of my family is a little bit overweight, right? And so it was the culture. That's like the way we grew up, And I wanted to lift weights because I wanted to get stronger and leaner, and picked up some some muscle and fitness magazines, some muscular development magazines where you got all these ripped jack dudes. And I remember doing, the 8-hour arm workout where the guy says you drink a protein shake and eat a banana between each 45.
Oh my God. For those of you listening to this, go on YouTube and type in the Muscle Tech. That's what it was. Muscle Tech, gain 1 inch to your arms in one day.
Yep.
It's the funniest thing because you see the guy doing curls and then it's like, and have a protein shake, and it slides in like a protein shake. It's the funniest thing. You know how many times I did that routine actually?
I think I only did it once because like I was worried about my arms hurt so bad that I was worried about them like getting bruised, because they like hurt forever. And I did that workout one time and I followed the whole thing. Like it's like skull crushers and bicep, like all this shit. And you do like 5 or 6 exercises for your biceps and then 5 or 6 exercises for your triceps. And the workout takes 45 minutes. And then you're supposed to rest for like an hour and then go and do it again or something like that. You do it just over and over and over. Yeah, add 1 inch to your arms in one workout or something like that. A banana and a protein shake between each workout. Yeah. So, but I got into it and then I wanted to be stronger. And then I fell in love with wrestling, and got pretty good competitively and strength trained and got really strong doing that. And that was my motivator moving forward to get better at strength training. Then got injured and wanted to go the physical therapy route for a little while, but realized that wasn't where my passion lied. And applied for physical therapy school for like 3 or 4 years in a row while I was working as a trainer, right? Started working as a trainer, went to college to get my kinesiology degree, got that degree, applied for grad school a bunch of times while still working as a trainer, and paid for my entire college, no debt, from my personal training career at the time. I would just train clients in the morning before class, train clients after class, at a local gym.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna parrot that same exact thing. Same exact thing. That's how I got through college, man. I was working full time, and that was the cool thing about personal training was that I was able to work full time because you could just work around school.
Yep.
And it was funny because I was at that point, everyone's broke in college, and I was like the only one with money.
Yeah.
It was actually kind of weird because I didn't have any, but I saved all my money. I was able to save all my money. I bought my first condo at 21. So it was just like, for me, it was just like, I just saved everything. But I was the only one at that time in college to actually have money, which was pretty weird. But yeah, that was one of the blessings with personal training was that you're able to kind of work around your schedule. And the cool thing was, I mean, you guys all know this, you're all gym owners, but like you get such satisfaction out of helping people,
Right. Yeah. And that's exactly the case. Didn't get in PT school, right? Over time. And one day decided I could go to a business seminar or go to my last interview for PT school. And they were in the same city and I had already flown there. And the morning I woke up and I closed the book on the interview clothes, picked up the trainer clothes, went to the trainer business seminar and never looked back. And that was kind of where I started my business. But over the years, it was hopping from athletic club, gold gym, athletic club, independent contractor, the whole nine. And once I shut the door on PT school, I focused solely on how am I going to build a business. And I was working for a trainer at the time in the same town. And this trainer was kind of an absentee owner, didn't really understand business model, nothing. We've talked about him on some other podcasts. But he basically was taking the money and going to Vegas and blowing it all and not paying staff. And I wasn't getting paid. I didn't get paid for 3 months or something, or 3 pay periods, 6 weeks. I didn't get paid at all. And I was like, all right, it's time to start my own thing. And so I just went down the street, started my own thing, and started with 18 clients in 2015. 18 clients in 2015 is what I started with. Just enough money to pay the rent at the first location that we got a lease for. And now, I mean, shit, we don't have to go to now yet, but just for the difference is now we're at just over 200 members in 2022. So it's pretty crazy when you think about where we started, and the trials and tribulations that we've been through with being poor and having owners of businesses that didn't treat us all that well, or managers that, you know, treated us like crap or whatever it may be. And all of that happens, and all of that is part of the path and part of the story to end up where you end up. And there's more to the story, but I kind of want to hear Anthony's come up from his time at Gold's to whatever other gyms and his own struggle.
Good old Gold's Gym, man. That's what I'll say. Good old Gold's Gym. So I worked at Gold's Gym for a while. I was there for about 11 years or something like that, working my way up from trainer. You know, it's so funny because I'll never forget. I tell the story all the time. I'll never forget when I first got hired. I was like, you know, I went to my mom and I'm like, Mom, I'm going to make $30 an hour. And I was like, awesome. And I was working at it's funny you said physical therapy. I didn't know that about you, but I was working with physical therapists at the time too. I started at the office. So while I was I had 2 jobs when I went to college. And even before that, I used to go work at a physical therapy office, and I worked my way up from the back office of the physical therapy office, so like filing papers. I was making like $5 an hour and filing papers, still doing personal training. But anyway, neither here nor there, when I was working with physical therapists, it was cool. It was a cool position. But the one thing why I never went down that road was because I hated seeing people in pain like that. And when people are in physical therapy, they're miserable, especially if they're no fault. It's the worst. It's even worse, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But anyway, neither here nor there. I was working the 2 jobs, and I went to my mom and I said, Ma, I got hired as a trainer. I'm going to make $30 an hour. And my mom was like, oh, wow, that's great, Anthony. How many hours are you going to work? Well, I have to sell clients to get them. And my mom's like, and I tell my mom the story to this day, and she hates when I repeat the story. She's like, just stay at the physical therapy office. It's guaranteed money. This is not guaranteed. And I was like, I was so taken back. I'll never forget that. My mom's very supportive of me, like very supportive. But the fact that she said that, like, it stung so much. So anyway, So again, you're starting out as a trainer and you have to learn how to sell and you have to do all this. And no one taught me, you know, even when you're in a big box gym, they just throw you to the wolves and you're basically just trying to figure it out as you go. So trying to figure out how to close people and all this stuff while I was working at the physical therapy. You know, I was probably making less at the gym, actually. I was probably making like $2 an hour because I was spending so much time there trying to figure it out. But again, you work your way up, and then I worked my way up to the head of the department, and I was running a whole staff of people. We brought the department from like 12,000 a month to like 50,000 a month when I was there. And during this time, I was looking for ways to make more money because when you work at a big box gym, you can't make a lot of money. It's all dependent on your time. And so I said, maybe I'll start a website. And again, this is like 2007. I think my website, I should go back and look at GoDaddy, but my website, I purchased my domain in like 2005. So I have my domain, I start building up my website, you know, and again, it's just nothing really. But now I start getting some traction on it. Right now, social media is out. I'm posting more on social media, just trying to get my name out there. And I would get clients to come in, but I was only training at the gym. So I would just bring them into the gym. So the gym never gave me anything special for bringing people in. But the gym didn't like that I had my own website. So they made and I should have knew this was coming. They made all the trainers sign non-competes. So as the manager, I was like, I'm not going to sign this. And they pressured me to sign it. I was like, I'm not going anywhere. I don't plan on leaving this place. And we had just moved from Queens to Long Island, which for those of you in New York kind of know it's, you know, kind of a little bit away. But I was like, I'm not going anywhere, whatever, I'll sign it. Sign it. Literally the next week, they're like, listen, take down your website or you have to leave. So I left. And literally I took one day off to gather my thoughts. Now at this time, I had my daughter. We had just had my daughter. We had just bought a house. So now I took one day, gathered my thoughts, went through my whole roster of clients. And I just told people, hey, look, I'm training out of my garage now. If you want to come to Long Island, I'll make it worth your while. And I'll never forget that first month going from zero. I ended up making like $4,000 that month. And I
Yeah.
was like, I got something here. And that was it. And it was just a slow and steady climb, training out of the garage, getting new people. I'm again now acclimating myself to Long Island people when I was used to having people from Queens. My house at the time was about 30 minutes away. So a significant difference. So people weren't driving 30 minutes. I had some clients who came, and thank God for them because they kept me afloat. But, you know, started working from, little hours to 70 hours a week and just ridiculous Sundays all the time. And then I got full. I listened to a Grant Cardone episode, and the Grant Cardone episode, he said that Apple and Amazon both started in their garage, but they didn't stay in the garage. And that was when I was like, damn, he's right. And then I went out and I got a storefront, and then here we are. Kind of
Yeah.
how it works.
So funny going back to the comment that your mom made, because my mom, so when I decided to be a personal trainer, I was at community college because I graduated high school early, right? I was like 17 when I graduated high school. And I'm at community college and I pick up this flyer that's like, oh, become a personal trainer in like 2 quarters. They had like a program that got you ramped up to take the NSCA CPT exam. And I'm like, bring it home because I'm living with my mom at the time. And I'm like, hey, do you think I could do this? Do you think this is something that I should do? She's like, sure, why not? And I'm like, okay, great. So I do it and I get certified and I do all this stuff and I get a job as a trainer and all these things. And one of the reasons why I wanted to be a physical therapist was because my mom would say to me, oh, being a personal trainer isn't a real job. And would say that to me all the time. Like there was some prestige.
That stings because it's the truth. It's the truth. It stings.
It's just and that's what, like, well, being a personal trainer is not a real job. You're not gonna make real money doing that. It's not stable. It's not da, 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 da. And so that's why like the prestige of being a physical therapist is like, okay, you have the degree and you have the clout and all this stuff, but in reality, if you really boil it down, the amount of money that you're putting in to go to school, like you're paying off that school debt until you're freaking 50 years old. So just because you make a little more and there's a little more prestige and all this kind of stuff, for me, it was like I had to come to terms with the fact that this was a real career and I could make a real career path for other people. And that was one of the things that lit the fire under my butt to actually push forward and push for my own business, because I was like, I can create a career path for somebody who wants personal training to be their main and only thing. And that's why we structure our career paths at our facility to be, it's hourly, but they get other tasks and they have full schedules and full 40-hour weeks, and they're actually
more reliable.
More reliable.
More reliability.
Exactly. That's why we developed our businesses that way. Because it was funny because I didn't know Anthony's mom had said that to him, but it's like very similar in that, you're kind of motivated by the fact that like your mom, the person that's like supposed to support you and everything, kind of goes, should you really be doing that? Is that really you're really gonna make it? Is that a real job? Da da da. Like, oh, you should stay with the $5 an hour job because the sales, I don't know, but it's an unknown. But sales is like literally one of the most powerful skills that you can acquire, right? Because that's what fueled the fire for us both to go off on our own. When I first started, I was renting space from another trainer who couldn't make his business really go. So he was renting space out to other trainers to build their own businesses within it. And at the time, I started out very similarly, $4,000 to $5,000 a month, right? Was where I started renting space from this guy. And then about 6 months later, he like kicked me out of the space and was like, well, I'm shutting it down. I'm not renewing my lease. So you have a month to get out. And I'm like, oh man, okay, let's figure this out. Got with a real estate guy. We're like looking at spaces all over the place, looking at spaces all over the place. I finally found the space, the original space we were going to go into, 11 days before I had to be out of the other space. 11 days. it was a fully functional salon when I got it, right? So 11 days we found it, lease negotiations, closed on the lease 9 days before I had to be out of the other space. And in 9 days, I grabbed some buddies. We grabbed a case of beer, some sledgehammers, and a roto hammer to get up all the tile flooring. And I would be, after I'd get done with evening clients, like 7 o'clock, I'd go in, start roto hammering, tearing down walls, all this stuff until 3 a.m. Get up, go to bed for like 2 hours, get up, train my 5 a.m. clients, train in the morning, midday, go back, build out. 9 days turned it into a gym. First space, right? 9 days, got it functional at least. We didn't have squat racks for about 6 weeks because we had some hang up with our shipping on the equipment. So we just did kettlebell swings and deadlifts for like the first month of opening. But that was the humble beginnings of the business, right? We moved a couple more times and grew our member base and worked with some business coaches and found some friends along the way. Like Anthony and I met in a business coaching program to grow our businesses. And that was really where things started to blow up for me. Is like I jumped from coach to coach, found a coach that worked really well with me, blew up, found another coach that worked really well with me, blew up again. And, you know, that's a longer story, but just wanted to share with you the origin story. I don't know if Anthony's got any more origin side of it. I mean, the parallels are uncanny. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it is actually funny. I guess that's why we get along so well. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and I never really had a lot of business coaches. I didn't trust a lot of people. I just hustled. That's basically how I got there. Taught myself everything about sales, and I just hustled. And, you know, I got into a business group with Jimmy. That's how I met Jimmy. And that was honestly the best thing that ever getting out of that group was Jimmy. You know, we talk all the time. We're best friends. So it's really, really cool to have that. But I didn't have a lot of coaches. And it's funny because when I was in that business group with Jimmy, everyone would make fun of me because I knew no one. Like they would talk about like all these guys and I don't know, all these fitness people. I'm like, I have no idea who that is. And I didn't care. What I was doing was working. Because I was so hungry to just keep growing how much I was taking home. How much am I taking home? That's all I focused on. I didn't care about how to teach a kettlebell swing. Beyond the basics for clients that we train, women, you know, 35 and older, doesn't matter. None of that even matters. It's all the same. So I just stopped learning about fitness. I shouldn't say stop learning. That sounds really bad. But I didn't put my focus on learning more about, you know, the proper techniques to swing a kettlebell, blah, blah, blah. I didn't, you know, once you learn the basics, that's it. And I just kept it simple and grew my business just like that. And then I guess the next hurdle that I went over was got my business to a really significant point and decided to open up a second facility. And then COVID happened and that whole nightmare. So COVID happened. It was a year and a half of like hell supporting 2 places. My landlords didn't cut me any slack. So, I mean, it's part of business. What are you going to do? And now coming out the outside of that and growing back these 2 locations. And I'm not really sure where I'm going to go from here, but yeah, I mean, there's not really much more to the story than that. It's just a lot of long nights and early mornings and long nights
to get to where we are now. And so the 70-hour work weeks, if you're dealing with the 70-hour work weeks and the not knowing where your rent's going to come from and not knowing where you're going to get your next client and all that kind of stuff, if you're in that phase of your business, we have some secrets to help you get out of those phases because we've been there. And you don't need to stay there longer than you need to. There's a time for that where you need to be in that grind, right? But you can have a shorter period of time in that grind and get to the point where we're at, right? Anthony's got multiple facilities. I have a 7-figure facility, and it's been work and it's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears along the way, but we can help you get there because we've been there and we're still grinding now. Like we're still doing it. Now, what we do now is not as much of a grind, really. It's more this mental fog that we got to get through to figure out what the next thing is. But
which is definitely worse. It's definitely worse because, you know, before it's like when you're working in the business so much, it's like, okay, I want to make more money, so I just got to work more. It's kind of easy. Okay, I'll just take on another client. I'll just do another session. I'll just do this. It's just easier. But at the point that we're at, it's a lot harder because now it's like you got to try to make more money without actually physically doing the work.
Right. It's a different struggle, right? But if you're at the stage where you just need to get out of the day-to-day and you need to get off the training floor a little bit so you can focus on growth, or if you're at the stage where you're just starting and you're just opening up, you need to get off the training floor, or you need to get somebody in the sales seat so you can finally have the freedom that you want from your business and make it like a living, breathing entity. Whatever phase you're at, we've been at all of those phases, right? So we can help you get to the next level no matter where you're at. And we just wanted to kind of share our origin stories, a couple of poor kids that were either skinny or fat, and now look at where we're at.
And now we're the same, still skinny, still fat.
With a little
we're
more
actually
muscle.
both in shape. Yeah, we're actually in shape, guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you guys want help in any of this, just click that link below. You guys know what to do. Anthony and Jimmy, Fitness Profit Multiplier. We are out.